If you want to master watercolor, then you do not want to watch this video.
Okay, so we're here working on kind of a poured watercolor. But welcome everybody. Today I'm working on a pretty half-sheet watercolor. As you can see, lots and lots of details on this guy. I've done multiple layers on this. Now this blue-green crap that's here is masking fluid. And hold that up to light, you can see that a little bit easier. And you can't see what's underneath the masking fluid because that's covering all the other color and protecting the other color, but that's what I want for this image though. So I built up a lot of sense of depth in this, multiple layers. I put lots of masking fluid down here, pour the color on top, put more masking fluid down when it's completely dry, pour more color on top of that, and just keep going from dark. I'm just going to start working. Alright, so I want to make this area a little bit darker over here. And this spray bottle is dying, I think. Darn it. So we're going to get the paper wet first. Take a little bit of rose madder. This Highlights Crimson. It's a pretty strong color. And get the paper wet first. And then what you do is you pick this up and you just start moving the color around. Now I can't touch the surface of the paper very much, because that's what pulls off the color. So I'll let that go into all those areas I want. And wherever the color isn't going, just hit with some water, move it around. And you just have to trust the process. Now sometimes masking fluid acts like a dam. So sometimes you do have to use your fingers to get things to go into the grooves. Alright, now I'm just checking to see if it's a little bit too dark or a little bit too light. If it's still wet, you can dab off a little bit of the color. But we got more of a definite, sense of movement right there. And I'm going to use my finger here because I don't think the color went there. Try not to do that too much though, because that will start to pull off the color. And now I'm just letting it move just a little bit more up into this section here. I am going to have to use a hair dryer here in a second and dry most of this little area. Alright, see the color's going all the way down into here now, which is okay. Just trying to get rid of, I don't want hard edges on things. Hard edges are where I'm going to get where the masking fluid is. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit that with a hair dryer, get most of that. Okay, I mean that's mostly dry right now, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition over to this area, and I got to find my other spray bottle. So I want to get this whole area darker up in here. So I'm going to take the red again. And if it's not moving, get in more water, and I'm pretty much just going to go back and forth, back and forth. Again, try not to use your finger too much. I don't want it to run down into the center area too much, so I'm making everything go this direction right now. If it's too much, hit it with more water. We'll make things rub off here. And this is gonna make a giant mess. So clean up on all fours and pick up all that excess water. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this the other direction. I want gravity to move things this direction. Now I got some straight paint that came out of there. Yeah, that's all right. What I can do is, I thought I'd mixed it up enough with a brush, but I can just hit it with my finger and probably emulsify that. Now if it's too dark, hit it with more water. And let gravity just move things downhill for you. You go through a lot of paper towels doing this. Okay, and now I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the hairdryer on this guy again. I'll turn this so you can see this normal direction. Yeah, see, that definitely got things darker. You get a nicer glow. I think this is a little too strong up in here, so I'm going to blast off some of the color. Just knock it down a little bit. All right, that's a little bit better. I didn't want that area to be too strong. All right, now what I want to do is I want to get this area in here a little bit darker, but I don't want to get too much of this section. So instead of spraying the whole thing with water, I'm just literally, and this is still a little damp because I'm working on multiple layers. So I'm going to do is I'm going to take a solar spray bottle, Soho one, and this is, and the idea is I'm just trying to spritz into that area. Now this red's pretty strong. So I don't need a ton of it. And put that down there, and then if it's not moving around much, just hit it with more water. And sometimes you got to remember that the masking fluid does act as a dam, so it doesn't want to let it go certain places. So if you need to get the color to go, sometimes you just got to use your fingers. All right, I'm going to drop a little bit more red down into here. And then spray a little bit more water to get it to move around a little bit. And I'm going to have to dry off the paper after this because things aren't... you shouldn't touch things that are really wet because that pulls off the color. I got a lot of stuff that's wet right now. I don't mind if this gets into here a little bit. And I gotta lay that flat for a second. I can't touch that side yet, it's still too wet. So let me go through lots of paper towels. That's alright, just dry these guys out. Okay, so that's kind of starting to dry, so now let's get this area wet. And we're going to do the same thing again with the red starting here, because this is where there's a big shadow coming from the tree. So put down a bunch of that color, and before you start getting hard edges, hit it with some water so it moves around a little bit more. I don't want it to go uphill too much, so I'm just going to go around here. Round and around we go. So here you can see that the masking fluid is preventing the color from going places. Same thing over here. I think that's mostly masked off over there though. Okay, and sometimes you just got to hit it with a little bit more water. Get things to move a little bit. Let's let it go that direction. And again, let gravity do the work for you. And then take a look at this, and I think I want this to go, I think I want the red to go more that direction. So while that's all still wet, let's spray over here a little bit more, and let's take a little bit more of this red color. Trip that into here. This area is a little bit darker in the picture. And I'll let everything go that direction. I very lightly use my finger to get the color to go into grooves, into the cracks. Okay. And I'll put this down for a quick second. And if the red's not moving enough, hit it with some more water. And things will start to move around on you. I'm really going to have to dry this paper after this is all really soaking wet. So you're not going to get hard edges because you've sprayed things. And do cleanup on all fours to soak up the excess where you don't want it. And then I'm going to lay that flat and see if it's starting to get, if you want to get more buildup while things are still wet, drop the red into here now. And it's not going to move as much because now we're doing it flat. And if you get a hard edge, get a little bit of water and go back and forth a little bit, and you're going to get a softer edge there. And you could use your paper towel. It's going places you don't want it to wick up the excess. And then I'm going to have to let that dry a little bit now too. And let me see how we were doing on time here. Oops, actually needed to see where I was located, if I was still on the screen or not. All right, so this is just a 2-ounce bottle, polar tip. Polar flow bottles that I buy and I use. And so the papers, we've got all this area is wet. We put extra red into here, we put some red into here, we put red down into this section. That looks super strong right now. It's going to dry a lot lighter though. And I've got red all over my fingers, made a mess of myself. Okay, so paper's still relatively wet in areas. I'm just going to do cleanup again under aisle 4. What I'm going to do is I want to get some blues across this section here. This is the darkest area of the painting here. This is also pretty dark here too, but I don't want to do the blues yet on this because this is all wet right now, and if I do it while it's still wet, it's going to pull off all that color. So I've got some blue mixed up, which I think is a combination of ultramarine and cobalt, but I'm not entirely sure. And I'm going to come into here and spritz water across this whole section here. If you're putting the color here, get all this area wet because you don't want to get hard edges. And I'm going to bring this up in here a little bit too. And then so it's definitely wetter in here. Now don't touch this with the brush. Okay, that's pretty strong right now, so, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt this direction. I'm going to go back and forth, and just remember with this technique, if things aren't moving, you got to add more water. So now I'm going to get all the color kind of creep up this direction towards the top here. If it's not going into areas, just use your fingers and just gently go across the surface. Okay, and if you take off too much of the color, what you can do then is, if you realize you squirted off too much of it, I don't think I did actually, I think that is okay. But do clean up on all 4 underneath the paper. And now we've got some darks up in this area. We've got some things that sort of sit on top of the yellows here that are kind of making some green right here, which I don't want. Even though it's a forest, I'm not really looking for greens, I'm looking for warms. So now I'm going to come back in with a paper towel. It should be a clean one. This is not. And just take off a little bit of that color. Now, over here, if I want to get some stronger blues back into here, just drop this, drip it directly on top. And now that there's not as much water on the paper because most of it's run off already, then if you go back and forth a little bit, just to kind of feather those edges, what you're going to do is you're going to get some beautiful drips of blue. It makes the color look so different because that blue will literally just kind of sit on top. Now, I did that, and that. I feel like it's too patterned. I'm going to put blue right there. And you can see how wet this is. I can hold this up to the camera a little bit. That blue is going to want to just sit right on top of that. Okay, I'm always doing cleanup. All four. Now, while that's all still wet right there, I'm going to take the smaller spray bottle and I'm going to spritz. Try not to add more water this way. I'm just trying to get this section here wet. This is pretty dark here. And this is where I want my blue to sit here also. So drip here, a little drip there. That's kind of relatively uniform though, those drips, but it's something I try to avoid doing much. And then let this move downhill a little bit. So the other color is going to move a little bit too, but not a ton. Okay, I think that looks okay. Always clean up on all four. You're always going to get a bunch of this mess. Do a little blue here. I'll go back up to here. I think I lost my effect here. I started messing with it too much. Drip some blue right here. And we're trying not to touch this wet surface too much. I know it's easier said than done, because that's what starts to pull the color off. Okay. And when you like what's going on, this is the hardest part. You just got to stop messing with it. That blue, when it dries, is going to kind of start sitting on top of the color, and it creates just a beautiful color. It just creates this beautiful. Oh, didn't mean to do that, but I'll take that. I do want to put a little bit more blue into there, but I accidentally shot it out of the bottle by accident. I don't want that to move too much. I'm going to kind of sit on top now. You can use a hairdryer on this, but just the really wet areas, don't blow it around too much. Just go back and forth, back and forth. You start to see the sheen on the paper. If I could speak English, that'd be nice. Kind of start to disappear. And let me go over here and just see how we are doing. All right, and now. All right. All this section is still wet in here quite a bit, but what I want to do is I want to darken this down too. And I think what I'm going to do here is, I don't remember if I put red down in there. And I'm going to take the small spray bottle, the Soho one. Try not to disturb this stuff over here. I'm going to come in here with a little bit of this red also. Now this stuff is drying enough where the color's not going to move around much. But what I have to watch out for, when I'm not doing a live stream video of this, I'm much more careful about going section by section, and the color's not moving very much. I want to kind of go this direction on me. So if it's not moving, just hit it with more water, and that will get it to move. Now I want to go down uphill a little bit, and then that direction, and that looks like it's going to be super dark, but I don't think it is. And if it goes into this section, it's not that big of a deal either. Okay, I'll let that sit for a second and see if I like that. I'm going to take this paper towel, I'm going to dry it, I'm going to lay it out on my table, I dry this out and just reuse them again. And if things look a little too dark, you know, I think we'll be okay, because it's, as I said, it's going to dry. It's going to look different when it dries. I can take my other finger and just move a little bit of that. It starts to move the color though, so try not to do that too much. And always, you know, if you want the paper to dry faster, you got to get the water that's underneath the paper. If you don't, it can leave water blossoms, but most importantly, it keeps the paper damp for a long time. So just kind of gently get rid of all the excess water underneath there. This is too much. Take off a little bit of it while it's still wet. I don't think it's going to be too much now. What I could do while this area is all still wet is I could focus on getting back over to here. Now in this section here, so this still needs to get darker by quite a bit, but then also there's like a band in here that needs to be darker. And so I'm going to use the smaller spray bottle, the Soho spray bottle, and I'm going to spritz right into this area. Now paper is warped just a little bit, so everything's going to go. 300-pound paper stays pretty flat on you, but you do got to kind of, it does curl a little bit sometimes. So remember, if the paint's not moving much, you need to hit it with water. Now come on, sometimes I just have to use my finger to encourage it to go where it doesn't want to go. And that masking fluid is acting like a dam, so it's preventing the color from moving certain places. Sometimes you just have to use your finger very gently to go through that. And then here it looks like it's going to be too hard of edge, so just hit it with more water and move it around a little bit. And if I don't want it to go certain places, I can just dab off a little bit of it. Just lift things up just a little bit. But you go through lots of paper towels doing that. I think that's a little bit too dark in that section. I'm going to take out a little bit of this. Just spray it with more water and then dab with the paper towel. You can see we're just lifting off the red right now. And see if I like that or not. You could also darken this area up in here a little bit more too. Everything is just really wet right now. I really should just hit this with a hairdryer, but so is that dry enough? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so just gonna spray a little bit of water here. This is still wet over here, so I can't do much with that. Take just a tiny bit of the blue. And the idea is I just want the blue to go across that way. And, ooh. Okay, and I'm going to let it move down this way a little bit. Just nice, get a nice graduated wash. And then tilt it back up again. And you're going to see most of that's going to come off the paper now. But I just got a little darker band up in there. If it's too much, while it's still wet, hit a little bit of water. And clean up with your paper towel. Alright, now before I get into more darker sections, I gotta dry things because I think that all the paper is wet right now. I've been doing this really fast for this video. It's a lot easier if I don't have Alright, while that area is up in here, this is all really wet in here, so I'm going to let that, I dried this area down a little bit more because we can put some more blue into here. And I don't want a lot of color to move around on me, so I'm using a smaller spray bottle. And I'm going to put the blue into this section. And then spray more water, get it around. If it's not moving, add more water. If it's too dark, add more water. But don't use a paintbrush. And you go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until you get what you're looking for. Now you can see some spiderwebbing effect from where the masking fluid or where the water is or isn't on the paper. So if you want to get rid of that, just hit it with more water. Though I actually kind of like that pattern because to me it kind of recreates nature. Okay, I'm going to let that guy kind of sit. Yeah, the edges of the paper are super wet on me here. While that's still, you know, I still have some water up in here. Now I'm going to darken that down a little bit too. Spray this area here. And not using as much color because I don't want to move it as much. I'm going to be careful because I don't want to move that stuff too much. Ooh. I might have done that the wrong way. Yeah, I want to go this direction. And let things move downhill a little bit. Can take off that excess water. Okay, so we just go layer by layer by layer, building up these colors. And this is going to look remarkably different when we take off the masking fluid, remember, because there's masking fluid over a large percentage of this painting. Just trying to get this a little bit more even here. I could put a little bit more blue down in that section. Just a little drip of blue right there. And I said don't use your finger, but if you're real careful you can. Alright, I'm going to let that kind of sit here for a second. And do cleanup on all four. Because it always goes all over the place. That blue there is definitely going underneath the paper. And alright, so now that's wet, that's wet, that's wet, that's wet. Everything's wet right now. But you notice I haven't used a brush the entire time. I've gone through lots and lots of paper towels. No, I just have stacks of paper towels that I've used and I reuse again the next day. So these guys are all dried out. And that's the pile I'm grabbing right now. Alright, let me just take a look at this and see how this looks. Alright, now something I really like to do with watercolor, and what I think is really fun about this technique in particular, is that if you want to take your light colors again and float them on top of the darks, you can. What you do, in this case, you want to start with just straight paint. And then take your spray bottle. And what's going to happen is the yellows are literally now going to sit on top of the other colors. And I got a lot of masking fluid up in that section though, so it's going to create kind of a dam all over the place. But you got to do this on completely dry paper, so I'm hoping that I dried that area, the blue on the left hand side, off enough. I don't know if I did. And then for this to really work too, you really kind of don't want to do too much with it. Put some color down, put some water. And spray the paper and then move it around so that you don't get hard edges. Let everything go back this direction here. But you notice this yellow is pretty much just staying yellow. It's not getting all muddy. And the reason why that's hot is because we're not really touching with the brush. Okay, now I'm going to let that kind of sit there. I'm going to put down a drip into here and just let that sit. I'm not going to move that much. Well, maybe a little bit. And I can tell color's not going into there, so let's just move that up and down a little bit. Alright, I'm going to let that sit. I'm not going to do much with that. I could do the same thing here a little bit, but everything's really wet right now. Kind of, well, I'm going to do that. Oops, I almost put down the, oops, see that? I almost put down red. I was trying to talk and multitask, and that doesn't work very well. So I'm just going to try to lighten this up a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the mist spray bottle, the finer one, and I put down color on dry paper first, which I don't typically do, and then let it move around just a little bit so we don't get hard edges. And I need to get some more water up into there. Ooh, I did drip red all over there. Let's get that off the paper before that starts to dry too much. I was digging that red into there. That is not what I wanted to do. Need to go there a little bit. Okay, I got to stop this because everything is wet right now. It's moving too much on me. I got to let that soak in for a few minutes before I do anything because there's just a giant puddle. If I use a hairdryer, I'm going to start blowing paint all over the place. I don't think I want to do that. So now down in this area here, this is still a little damp too. I'm going to go back with more blue to really darken it down. And I'm going to put those drips down here, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to move this very much. A little bit more water. I think I'm going to tilt it just a little bit that way. Okay, now I'm going to stop. I'm just going to kind of let that sit there. I don't know if I like that, but I got a lot of stuff that's wet right now. So now what this is really going to do is it's really going to sit on top of the darks. And if you don't move it around, it can kind of get like an opaque look to it, which I didn't really get too much over here because I was messing around with it too much. But what I could do is if I want to get that blue back into here, on dry paper first, and then hit it with water and let it feather out. Now those bubbles are going to disappear. And this blue is a completely transparent color, but you can get to function as an opaque if you put it on thick enough. Which I'm hoping happens here, and I'm hoping happens here. And if I don't like it, all I got to do is just move around a little bit, and I'll kind of get rid of that effect. Now I'm getting a hard edge up here. Now I got to spray that area again and let that move around a little bit. If it's sitting too much, just move it a certain direction. This blue here isn't moving too much right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go this direction. Okay, there. Trying not to move too much of that yellow, which is sitting on top of the paper. And I'm going to have to, I can't really use a hairdryer on that. You have to be very, very careful, but that's all wet, that's all wet, that's all wet. Actually, everything's wet, including I'm all wet, I'm dirty. Got blue all over me. Use a hairdryer on this because you kind of kill this effect. If you use a hairdryer, it starts to blow it around too much, and it pushes it back into the darks. But if you let it just sit on top of the surface, it's going to create this beautiful glow. The same thing with this yellow sitting here. This is sitting on top of your other darks, and so it's going to literally just sit on top, and it's going to just create this beautiful glow to it. And I'm trying to just get a sense of movement. Now this is going to look a lot different when I take off all the masking fluid. And you just got to remember, everything's covered with masking fluid right now, or a lot of it is. So there is a bunch of pure white in this painting, and almost whites, but you can't see it because it's been covered, it's hidden by this masking fluid. So sometimes, and right now I'm using Pebeo, which is this really old, disgusting bottle, but it's Pebeo drawing gum, which is also masking fluid, just called something different. This stuff dries as a blue-green, and I like that because sometimes you can see it, but then sometimes I don't like it because you can see it too easily. So at times I like to use other masking fluids, and there's lots of different types of them, but I can't peel the masking fluid off until everything is 1000% dry, otherwise I'm going to start rubbing wet color into the areas I preserved. So I just kind of have to be patient and just wait here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this just sit and dry for a few minutes.
And after hours and hours of work, masking, pouring colors, scrubbing edges, here's the final finished painting. If you like this content, hit subscribe. I'll have more watercolor tutorials in the future. Thanks a lot and happy painting.